This is WWE superstar Drew McIntyre, and you're listening to the WWE Podcast.
The champ is
the one that everybody wants, me.
It's going to WrestleMania. Claymore!
Austin 316 says I just whipped your ass. This is my iron. You're going to acknowledge me.
What's going on, everybody, guys and girls? Welcome back to another edition of the SmackDown Review right here on the WWE Podcast. As always, I'm one of the hosts of the show, Michael Ritter. You can find me on Twitter, Michael5Ritter, and also one of the hosts of the Football Function podcast, available on all of your podcasting platforms. I'm rolling solo tonight. My typical co-host, John Carrasco, he went to a softball tournament, or maybe just had some games in Clovis, New Mexico. This isn't the first time this has happened in terms of him going to Clovis to play softball, so you longtime listeners are well familiar with John's softball hobby, so that's what he's doing tonight. I'm going to be rolling solo, breaking down this episode of SmackDown, but I got to be honest with you guys, it was a pretty eventful day yesterday, just in my personal life. Little side story, a little behind the curtain, if you will. Yesterday, I got stung by 2 wasps at the exact same time. So, I'll kind of fill you in on how this happened, right? Just to update you on my status for this episode. So, just a little bit of a disclaimer. John and I both do manual labor, and we were on one of our specific work sites. And I was just so happened to, be working around a tree, and coincidentally, John, the other co-host of the show, he called me. He wasn't at the property that I was at. He called me, and I had to stop what I was doing, went about my business after we hung up. I go over to this tree, and this tree just so happens to have a wasp nest in it. And, if you've ever been stung by a wasp, you know that it's not fun. I didn't know that there was a wasp nest in this tree. And, oh boy, I was very much so informed that there was a wasp nest in that tree because, there was 2 of them on my arm, and I didn't feel it until it was too late. And, yeah, it just absolutely sucked having to deal with that. And I've actually only been stung by a wasp one other time in my entire life. And obviously it's different getting stung by 1 compared to 2. The 2 of them, I told someone that asked me about it shortly after it happened. It legitimately felt like I got stabbed. Like it felt like a firecracker went off on my arm. And whenever you feel that and you look on your arm, what the hell was that? And you see 2 wasps there and you have to swat them away. Oh my Lord. That is just thinking about it makes my arm hair stand up. But thank you guys so much for joining me here. I'm going to do my best to get through this episode of SmackDown. It was pretty good, I will say, other than my watching experience, because I still have DirecTV, although I will say my days are numbered with DirecTV. NFL Sunday Ticket is no longer there. It's with YouTube TV. So that's what I'm going to be switching over to before the NFL season. So hopefully then I can go back to watching SmackDown more regularly instead of on the Fire Stick, which is what I've had to do since this whole DirecTV and Fox dispute has been going on. It's not really a problem every single week, but because this isn't a live review, that's another thing, is because John's not here, I didn't go live on the review. I went ahead and watched it, took some notes, and I'll be reviewing the show as more of a post-show review, which is how I pretty much was introduced to the SmackDown review, so I'm perfectly fine doing that. I will say, though, it's not as easy as going with my co-host John, so you're going to have to bear with me here a little bit on that. However, as long as I'm going to have the Fire Stick experience, it's not always going to be a picture-perfect viewing 2 hours. And it was pretty much a perfect example of that tonight. It was just buffering a lot. specifically during the Grayson Waller effect. That one was just, I mean, terrible. I hardly even got to really take anything away from it. And not only that, but because it was on, the local Fox station, there's some severe weather situations going on where I live right now. So it kept getting switched over to, a weather announcement on the local news station because there's like tornado warnings, literally tennis ball size hail in some counties, not where I live, probably like several hours, but still the news was pulling it up because I live in pretty much the only big city in this area. So it wasn't the best way to watch SmackDown. I didn't even get a chance to see the way SmackDown went off the air, although I did see the ending segment. And, I'll let you know exactly whenever I'll let you know whenever SmackDown was cut off for me. And it went to the news and the weather update. And, oh, man, I was very pissed whenever that happened. Nonetheless, let's go ahead and get started on this SmackDown. This is the 141st since I've been doing this. So we're creeping up. 156 will be the 3-year mark. I've been keeping track here, so I'm looking forward to that for sure. But anyways, the SmackDown aired on June 23rd, 2023 from Cajun Dome, Louisiana. Shout out to DJ Kuzmo for the location breakdown. I'm not sure what this is, the Cajun Dome. I thought that was pretty interesting that that's what they said it was. I actually kind of want to look it up just because I am curious. I know that, obviously the Cajun stuff, that's clearly like a bayou type thing, right? That's clearly a Louisiana type thing. So if you would have told me that, I would have guessed it was in Louisiana. But let's see. Louisiana Cajun Dome. Located in Lafayette, Louisiana. Okay, so that's where they were, but that's the name of the arena. Nonetheless, I'm not the biggest fan of the whole Louisiana shtick. I will say, and I know, if you're from Louisiana, it's nothing against you, but I'm a Falcons fan. The Saints are our rival. So yeah, need I say more? Let's go ahead and get into this SmackDown. Shout out to DJ for the location breakdown. However, this SmackDown was open with the Usos. And they come out and they address it immediately. They're talking to each other. They say, we are about to have to fight our family, which is kind of tough for them to have to wrap their mind around. But, they know that it was the right decision doing what they did. And being in this spot is pretty much just where they were inevitably supposed to be. But they also, say that Roman Reigns, he's their cousin. They still love him, and they know he's the tribal chief, but it got to the point to where he was just disrespecting them. I'm paraphrasing for what Jimmy Uso was saying, and that's pretty much where they had to kind of swerve off a little bit. And, they talked about how, Solo Sikoa, their brother, is a snake. They call Paul Heyman a snake. There's a lot of criticism going towards the remaining members of the bloodline from the Usos. They criticized Paul Heyman for trying to drive a wedge between two brothers. He just doesn't understand how anybody could do that and how he could advocate for that, but that's obviously what he was doing. Just pretty much trying to be in Jey Uso's ear while Jimmy was away. They were trying to exile Jimmy Uso from the bloodline. I'm not really sure if that's exactly the terminology I should use, but you know what I'm talking about. But they're more than ready for the upcoming challenge at Money in the Bank, the Civil War of the Bloodline Civil War, however you want to phrase it. A tag team match, Roman Reigns and Solo Sikoa versus the Usos. This is going to be the main event of that pay-per-view in London. I know that Grim Reaper secured some tickets to a live event whenever, they are in his area. So shout out to Grim Reaper. I know that it's probably not often that he gets a chance to go to a WWE event. So I'm definitely glad that he's getting that opportunity. But the Usos do quickly point out that they're the greatest tag team of all time. They're definitely the greatest tag team in wrestling right now. That's obviously a subjective opinion. I'm not saying that that's a universal thought or anything like that. But you get what I'm saying, that the Usos are very much confident in what they bring to the table. And they say, we understand who you guys are. Roman Reigns, you're the tribal chief. Solo, the street Street Champ. Is that what his nickname is? Something along those lines. Either way, they allude to the fact that this is going to be a tag team match. This quote-unquote, this ain't no singles competition. That's what Jey Uso said. And you know what he means by that? You guys are stepping in our backyard. You guys are coming to our territory. This is a home field match for us. We're comfortable in a tag team match. Main event, Jey Uso already proved that he can go one-on-one. But he's way more natural in a tag team setting with his brother. Let's be honest. This is where they've made a name for themselves, where they started and secured their Hall of Fame career. So I think it's pretty evident that they do have the advantage here. I don't know who I'm going to pick to win. We're going to have a go-home show next week, and that's when we'll make our official predictions. But just the way this thing's going, it just seems like it makes sense for Roman Reigns to lose to the Usos. However, Roman Reigns has been made a fool a lot lately. Just when you look at the turns, the super kick from Jimmy, the super kick from Jay. I mean, he got the win at WrestleMania, but it seems like that was ages ago, at least to this point. So they might want to reestablish some dominance for the Bloodline, Roman Reigns specifically, and they could make this be a moment where it happens. I expect to see Rikishi, though, for some reason. I know he's kind of been talking a lot. I expect to see him involved at some point. I mean, if his sons are going up against his other son and I guess that would be his nephew, Roman Reigns is. I apologize. Not 100% sure on that one, but either way, I do expect Rikishi. I will say, though, those two names, Ricochet, Rikishi, a lot more close than you think. The wrestlers themselves, very different, not identical or anything like that, but the names, Ricochet and Rikishi. I knew that it sounded off, but I was like, what the hell did I just say? Okay, there we go. We're back on the same page here. I think Rikishi will show up. I'm not sure what side he goes on, though. Could this be a nice little twist where Ricochet... Oh, I almost did it again. Damn it. Rikishi turns on his twin sons and joins the Bloodline to kind of just, I don't know, maybe continue the legitimacy of the Bloodline. I was trying to figure out the word to use there, the credibility, legitimacy, whichever word you want to go with, because it does seem like since the Usos are gone, Sami Zayn left, now it's just Roman, Solo, and Paul Heyman. I know he has his new belt, and for some reason he keeps the other two with him too, but he's got his new fancy belt. I don't know. I mean, I'm not saying that Rikishi would add anything in ring, obviously, but just his presence, what he would do, what he would, provide to the Bloodline. And I know this is far-fetched. I'm going to go on record. It's not going to happen. I'm not predicting it. I'm just saying that, hey, it would be pretty cool if, because, I mean, when you go for 3 years like Roman Reigns has and this Bloodline storyline has, you have to throw in some monkey wrenches, some curveballs, You can't just keep it vanilla all the time. I mean, this was a massive turn. Why not milk it a little bit? Bring in their father, one way or the other, and go into SummerSlam, feud for the rest of the summer, and this could be pretty damn interesting. As a kid, like 4th, 5th grade, whenever I would get out of school for the summer, that's whenever wrestling was so badass. Like, I remember getting out of school in the 4th grade. This was 2004 at the time. And this was the summer Chris Benoit was the World Heavyweight Champion. Eddie Guerrero was the WWE Champion. He ended up losing it at the Great American Bash that same summer. At SummerSlam, Chris Benoit ended up losing his World Heavyweight Championship to Randy Orton. And that's obviously whenever he got jumped or turned on by Evolution. Great moment on Monday Night Raw. But I think that the summer could be a beneficial time for the Bloodline to really develop this even more. They're doing it so well. The slow burn has been phenomenal. The turns mean so much. And I think they could definitely milk this bad boy for a lot longer than what they have. And, obviously that seems to be the plan. The last I heard is there were quote-unquote no end in sight with this Roman Reigns title reign. So I'm all for it. Let's go ahead and have Roman Reigns hold this title for, the foreseeable future. Like I mentioned whenever I was on the roundtable or town hall meeting for the Good Morning WWE episode with DJ Kuzmo and Kanye Twitty and obviously the Casual Wrestling crew, I said, hey, I predicted Cody Rhodes to win at WrestleMania and take the championship, but if Cody Rhodes lost that match and Roman Reigns won, then I thought that, hey, there's no reason for Roman Reigns to lose it now, right? Go on to WrestleMania 40. That's where it makes the most sense, because SummerSlam was never the right time for me. I know that's when it started technically, but whatever. I think it's all about WrestleMania when it comes to Roman Reigns. And once he went past WrestleMania 39, I knew that we were in for a pretty long ride. But let's go and move on to the next segment here, Rey Mysterio versus LA Knight. And boy, oh boy, was this not a massive pop for LA Knight. Arguably the most over wrestler. Him and Seth Rollins probably can, go neck and neck with the crowd reaction that they get every single time they make an appearance. But man, LA Knight, he's the odds-on favorite to win this Money in the Bank. And man, I will say, better late than never. We need to go back and look at our stock investment draft that John and I had. Because if I'm not mistaken, he had Solo Sikoa and I had LA Knight as our first 2 picks that we made. And Solo's looking pretty damn good with where he's at in the bloodline. If LA Knight wins the Money in the Bank, ooh, man, we're cooking with gas there. But nonetheless, LA Knight does get the win here against Rey Mysterio after countering a 619. He caught his legs. But he gets the win. This match stems from last week whenever LA Knight had his encounter with Santos Escobar and then shoved down Rey Mysterio and still didn't get boos. That's how you know he's extremely over and the fans are loving him right now. If he comes out to the ring and shoves somebody like Rey Mysterio to the ground for no reason, they can't get boos on this guy. He's got a rocket strapped to his back right now. And I saw something online where the reason why he was, Vince McMahon, if you will, earlier in the year whenever he was, changed to Max Dupree, was because they were concerned about his age. I believe he's 39. And it's funny that he wrestled Rey Mysterio tonight. It's just a coincidence because Rey Mysterio is the example I'm going to use as to why age really doesn't mean a damn thing. Number one, they bring back wrestlers whenever they're limping to the ring during their match the entire time. I love The Undertaker, but man, his retirement match probably should have came, probably about 5 or 6 matches earlier than what it really did, let's be honest. I'm not a fan of seeing wrestlers in the ring as a shell of themselves. I would much rather see a wrestler hang it up when they still somewhat look like what they always did, rather than hang on, for an extreme period of time whenever you clearly, should have, moved on with your life. And, it is what it is. I'm not judging any wrestler for doing that. I understand it's probably hard. This is their life. It's what they've done for so long. It's probably a completely different world whenever you're outside of it. Obviously, go look at some of the WWE documentaries that they have of some of these wrestlers whenever they hang it up. So I get it, but wrestlers are, despite being such a physical career, a physical lifestyle, they're able to go for a long time. Look at Chris Jericho over in AEW. He's definitely pushing 50, right? If he's not, he's extremely close. There's a lot of other wrestlers as well, man, that are, if they're not in their early 40s, they're in their really late 30s. And sometimes you don't even break through until you're 29, 30 years old. Diamond Dallas Page didn't even start training for wrestling until he was 35 years old. I'm 29. So that's pretty much like me 6 years from now saying, you know what, I want to start training for this professional wrestling thing. And having a career like Diamond Dallas Page, come on now. That's just, age is nothing is my whole point that I'm trying to make here. LA Knight is crazy on the mic. Some people say he's a quote-unquote Dollar General Rock. I saw somebody say that on Twitter. Somebody said something I don't know, I don't get the hype with this guy. What it is, he's just a cheap version of The Rock. I'm are you crazy? LA Knight, I get the comparison to The Rock. I get why you would say, okay, cool. His promo style, the way that he kind of, just bust guys' chops and does it so confidently, that does kind of reminisce The Rock. But at the same time, he's definitely his own guy. He does have his own, way of doing things. And I'm here for it. I love to see it. And I think that, obviously, listen to the crowd reaction, the internet reaction. The fans want to see LA Knight win the Money in the Bank. And I'm all for it. And boy, I really hope it happens. But let's see, continuing on here. Up next, Ridge Holland has a little bit of a backstage run-in with Solo Sikoa. They damn near cross paths, like run into each other. They both kind of stop, and Solo's staring at him. Ridge Holland says, "What are you looking at?" Bam, Samoan Spike right there. And as he falls down, Solo says, "I'm not in the mood tonight." We go to commercial break. Whenever we come back, Sheamus is in the ring, and he says, "Solo, what the blank did you think you're doing to my boy Ridge Holland? I saw what you did there. If you want to fight so bad, why don't you meet me in the ring?" And I popped when I saw this. I was like, "Who, Sheamus versus Solo? Are you kidding me?" Sign me up for that. So I was all for the one-on-one that was announced. We get a main event between Sheamus and Solo, and we'll get there a little bit later. But this kind of just set the tone. I mean, the Usos started the show. I really wasn't sure which Bloodline members were going to show up. So seeing Solo walking backstage, he did have a little bit of like a Bowser feel to him. I mean, I did watch Super Mario Brothers a few weeks ago, so it is somewhat fresh in my mind. But just him walking all pissed off, kind of just, that big, bulky man, for some reason it just reminded me of Bowser. Anyways, let me try to reel this back in here. We get a unification match next. The Women's Tag Team Championships are unified. The NXT and the main roster Tag Team Championships. I like this. There's not enough women's tag teams to have one division, let alone two. So come on, what are we doing? Let's stop kidding ourselves. I'm here for it. Not going to lie, I kind of wish they do the same thing for the men's tag team. I know they already did unify them, but we already debuted everybody else a fancy new belt. Let's get the tag team fancy new belts. I mean, I know it's coming at some point, but I mean, you might as well. It's the final Infinity Stone for all of these new belts that we're debuting for, every women's champion, every men's champion. It just makes sense. Leave the Intercontinental and the United States alone. I mean, they were just redone not too long ago. So we can go ahead and just roll with the double tag team belts for now, but come on, very, very soon, let's do something about that. However, this one does feature, like I said, the NXT champs, Isla Dawn and Alba Fire versus the main roster women's tag team champions, Ronda Rousey and Shayna Baszler. Honestly, you expect Ronda and Shayna to win this match, but for some reason, I had a thought in the back of my head, just because Triple H is in charge. I thought that maybe there was a possibility that the NXT team could get put over. We seem, pretty deadly, get a number one contenders match for the tag team championships. That kind of just makes me feel like the NXT call-ups could possibly get a nice little push here. So I don't know. I had a little vision that they could win, but Ronda and Shayna end up making them both tap out simultaneously. And Raquel Rodriguez was on commentary, and, she tries to just leave after the match. But Ronda and Shayna pick up a mic. Ronda says something in Spanish, like, "Where are you going?" and tries to take a shot at the crowd. You could tell when Ronda's going off script, and it's always so uncomfortable. I'm not a fan of Ronda Rousey getting on the mic and just, letting her go off and do her own thing. But Raquel gets in the ring, and she just reminds them, hey, we never lost those championships that you guys are holding up right there. And Shayna immediately says, "Wait, we? Who's we?" Trying to, joke around a little bit, saying, "You don't have anybody. You're standing by yourself. We injured your partner," whatever. Bam. Liv Morgan, well, she didn't injure her partner, but Liv Morgan comes out. Her music hits. She's been out since the beginning of May. So pretty much 2 months, 2 long months without Liv Morgan. And they kind of just get in the face of Ronda and Shayna. And this seemed like it could be something this go around. Now that we've gotten Liv Morgan injured and taking time off, the fans have missed her. She's already over with the fans anyways. Raquel's kind of just been floating around, hasn't really had a home. I don't know. It just seems like this, like I was talking about with Jey Uso and Roman Reigns having a nice feud going into SummerSlam. It could be something similar with the women's tag team, kind of just avoiding each other up until SummerSlam somehow. Well, I mean, you're going to have to get at least a little bit of interactions, but what I mean is them avoiding Liv and Raquel in terms of giving them a title match. Like they can give them matches all day and trying to make them earn it, this and that. There's ways to do it where you can stretch it out and not just give you the payoff immediately. It could happen, but at the same time, I really don't know. It's hard to predict anything with this women's tag team division. It's hard for me to forecast whenever you're talking about, okay, what could we expect? There's really not a whole lot to expect with this division. There's no tag team. So if we can get some consistent teams in this division, maybe just have some women's tag team matches. Not everything has to be a contenders match or a championship match. You can just get these women's tag teams some exposure. If you want us to believe they're actually a team, we need to see them team up together. And WWE just doesn't do that way too often. But one thing I will say that I noticed while I was scrolling through Twitter today, Vince McMahon apparently made a lot of changes to SmackDown. And part of me wonders if maybe the Ronda and Shayna winning might have been one of those changes. I'm not 100% sure. Like I said, no idea actually, but something tells me that there's a chance that Vince McMahon got his little sticky fingers all over that card and just made some cut, snip changes. And here we go. This is a little bit better, quote unquote, but nonetheless. We move on to what happened next, which was the Grayson Waller effect with Pretty Deadly as his guest. I don't really know how to feel about this just yet. I like it does feel new. It feels like a new addition to the show. I like that. I like his song. The theme song is pretty dope. Just, I can tell you right now, I'm a fan of the setup, all in all. So, this is where the fire stick was kind of given out. It was pausing so much. So, I wasn't able to fully appreciate this segment for what it was. But I do know that Pretty Deadly said that this show was better than the KO show. The Street Profits eventually come out. Then we get Street Profits versus Pretty Deadly one-on-one. And then Pretty Deadly steals the win by putting their feet on the ropes as, I don't know their names just yet, so you do have to bear with me. But the blonde one puts his feet on the ropes and the other one kind of gives him a little bit of an assist. But keep in mind, Pretty Deadly is the number one contenders for the tag team championships. They have that match next week, if I'm not mistaken. So that's going to be a pretty interesting one. I don't expect them to win. I don't. Sammy and KO are going to have a lengthy run here. Pretty Deadly got a nice little push by winning that gauntlet match to get them some exposure, especially on a pay-per-view going overseas to the UK. Could have a lot to do with it. Not 100% sure, but I don't expect them to win. So, yeah, you can go ahead and bag it in for Kevin and Sammy, even though I already said I wasn't telling my predictions just yet. One kind of slipped out a little bit. Because, yeah, I do not expect Pretty Deadly to dethrone the champs just yet. Moving on, we get another match here. Charlotte versus Lacey Evans. And this one wasn't as long as I thought. I thought this one was going to go on for a little bit longer, although maybe I just wasn't paying attention to the time. But then again, Charlotte was out to prove a point. She makes Lacey Evans submit with the figure eight, but while she still had the move locked in, Asuka creeps in and attacks Charlotte, does the ultimate heel move, just gets the upper hand, pretty much says, hey, I know we kind of sort of went at it last week. Now you know, I can bite back too. Grayson Waller was right. You haven't faced this version of me yet. So, we'll see what happens. But I will say Bianca Belair, keep an eye on her. She is definitely involved in this. I kind of thought she might come out. She didn't. But it was definitely on my mind that, hey, you could expect her at any point to make an appearance here. Not surprised that Charlotte did squash Lacey, but I just thought it might be, I don't know. I had more expectations for this match, just given the stature in both of these women, but clearly Charlotte on a completely other level, and she proves that tonight. Up next, we get the main event, Solo Sikoa versus Sheamus. And man, this was a pretty physical match from what I did get to see. Like I said, the severe weather updates kept breaking up my program. Like, ooh, I'm sorry we interrupt this program. Yeah, you're pissing me off when you were doing that. But I understand. Some serious things were happening. Tornado warnings are no joke. And, tennis ball sized hell. Have you guys seen tennis balls? Imagine driving down the street and a tennis ball comes down, but it's, in the form of ice. And it hits your windshield and the top of your car and the hood of your car. And it's not a fun driving experience. So yeah, I totally understand them wanting to update the people in the area. It just sucks that, SmackDown and Fox and all that nonsense just can't find a way around that. Like, man, why does SmackDown have to get interrupted? But either way, Solo does push Sheamus through the barricade, and that pretty much ends the match. And then Solo pretty much just goes on a tear. He goes ape you-know-what and starts spiking everybody in sight, just people in the black shirts, like the officials that are around there, the WWE security, whatever. He's having his way with those guys, and that was the way that quote-unquote SmackDown went off the air for me, because after that, we didn't see anything. Like, it was a severe weather update for so long. I even looked it up on YouTube, on Twitter. Nobody has the videos out yet of what I missed, but it couldn't have been much. So I do apologize, but hey, hopefully we can be past this soon, and hopefully maybe YouTube TV won't allow that, because I won't be watching on like a local, or I won't be watching like through cable. I'll be watching through YouTube. So hey, this could end very, very quickly. So yeah, shout out to YouTube TV for coming in clutch and hopefully ending my 9-year relationship with DirecTV. It's been fun and it's been real, but it hasn't been real fun. So yeah, I'm not going to be sad when we have to part ways, but I will be sad whenever you and I, you as in the listener, have to part ways, because this is the end of the SmackDown review. I was able to get through it with no John and 2 bee stings, wasp stings, whatever. It sucks either way. Definitely apologize if you heard me scratching that at any point. It's not a fun or comfortable place to be, like, at all. This is I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy. So yeah, definitely try to avoid wasp nest anytime you can. It's a tough word to say, especially like when you said it like 15 times in this episode. Wasp nest. Avoid them if you can. So do whatever you have to do. I do thank you guys for listening to the SmackDown review. Hopefully you will continue to do it on a weekly basis. We'll be back next week to do the go home show for SmackDown and get ready for Money in the Bank. I'm super excited for that. But until then, guys, walk passionately in the direction of your dreams, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thanks for listening to the WWE Podcast. Don't forget to subscribe on your favorite podcast app so you don't miss a show, or head to WWEpodcast.com. And for all of these shows ad-free, head over to patreon.com/WWE Podcast. Until then, we'll see you next time.